I had buried my mother for exactly 11 minutes. The pastor had sat down. The choir had finished. The women beside me were pressing folded tissues to their eyes. And I was doing what men do at funerals, sitting straight, looking forward, holding the grief somewhere behind the ribs. That was when he stood up. A man I did not know. He was in his late 60s, I think. Gray at the temples, a dark suit, hands clasped in front of him. He did not ask for permission. He simply stood, and the room went quiet, in the way rooms go quiet when something wrong is about to. He said, "My name is Emmanuel Okafor." He said, "I knew Ngozi before any of you did, and I have held this for 35 years. The boy deserves to know." The boy. I was 35 years old. I was the boy.
My mother's name was Ngozi. She was the kind of woman who ironed everything. Church clothes, school uniforms, even the edges of bed sheets. She was the kind of woman who remembered every birthday. Not just in the family. Neighbors, old school friends, the woman at the dry goods store who once gave her credit. She was the kind of woman who prayed loudly and laughed louder, who cooked enough for whoever showed up, who never went to sleep angry, even when she had every right to be. She raised me alone. My father left when I was 4. She never spoke badly of him. Not once, not even when I asked. She said, "People do what they can with what they have." She said, "Your job is to do better." I thought I knew everything about her. I thought I had all of her. I had 35 years. I had every school morning, every argument, every silence at the dinner table that we both survived. I had her hands on my face when I was sick, her voice through a door when I was ashamed. I thought I had all of her. I did not have the beginning.
Emmanuel Okafor was her family's pastor 35 years ago. He had been the one she came to the night she made the decision. He said, "Your mother had a younger sister. Her name was Adana. She was 22. Adana fell pregnant outside of marriage. In that family, in that town, in that town. You understand what that meant?" I understood. Ngozi came to me with a baby boy. He continued, 3 days old. She said Adana could not keep him. She said she would take him. She said she would raise him as her own. She asked me to pray over the decision. We prayed for 2 hours. At the end, she stood up and she said, "God said yes." He paused. He said, "I have wondered for 35 years whether to tell you. She made me promise not to, but she is gone now, and a man should know where he came from." He sat down. The room was completely silent. I could hear the ceiling fan. I could hear a child outside somewhere laughing. I could hear my own heartbeat doing something it had never done before. I don't remember standing up. I remember the air outside, the compound, the red earth, the shade of the mango tree at the far wall. I sat under that tree for a long time. My uncle came out first. He stood near me but said nothing. That is how I knew he already knew. My aunts came out one by one. They stood in a loose circle at a respectful distance. None of them came to say, "This is a lie." None of them came to say, "That man is confused." They stood in the way people stand when they have been waiting for a thing to arrive, and it has arrived, and they do not know what to do now that it is here. I looked at my uncle. I said, "How long?" He said, "From the beginning." I said, "Everyone." He closed his eyes. He said, "She made us promise." I want to tell you I was angry. I was. But the anger kept sliding into something else. something that did not have a name yet. Because here is what I kept returning to. She chose me. Nobody asked her to take a 3-day-old baby. Nobody asked her to give up the possibility of her own children. She had no husband. She had no plan. She had a small room and a younger sister who was drowning. And she looked at that 3-day-old baby and she said yes. At 27 years old, she said yes. I kept thinking about the ironing, the birthdays remembered, the cooking for whoever showed up, the voice through the door when I was ashamed. None of that was an accident. None of that was obligatory. Every single day of it was chosen. Every single morning she woke up and chose to be my mother again. And she never once mentioned it.
She had left a letter. My uncle pressed it into my hand that evening. He said she wrote it 3 years ago. He said she knew she was getting sick. He said she said to give it to you after. I sat alone in her bedroom to read it. The room still smelled like her. Her Bible on the nightstand, her reading glasses folded on top, a photograph of me at my university graduation on the wall. I was the only photograph she had on any wall. The letter was 3 pages. Her handwriting, careful and slightly slanted the way it always was. She told me about Adana. She told me about the night she came to her. She told me she had loved me from the first hour. She said, I want you to know that I never thought of you as anything other than mine. She said, I want you to know I never once regretted it. She said, not the sleepless years, not the lonely years, not the years I watched you grow into a man I could not fully claim credit for. She said, God shaped you. I just kept you warm. And then she said something that I have read every day since. She said, if I had known you were coming, I would have prayed harder for you sooner. She said, I am glad Adana could not hold on. She said, because holding you was the best thing I ever did.
I found Adana. It took 4 months. She lives in Port Harcourt. She has a husband, 2 daughters. She cried for 20 minutes on the phone before she could speak. We have met twice. It is complicated. It is everything complicated things are. Painful and necessary and slow. But here is what I know. My mother was Ngozi, not because of blood, because of every morning, because of the ironing, because of the birthday cards, because of the voice through the door, because of 3 pages of careful handwriting that ended with, I am glad I found you. I am glad you were mine. There are people who give you life, and there are people who live it beside you. She was the second kind. That is the harder kind. That is the only kind that counts.